The news and more on 938 Live.
Eugene, are you going anywhere for the year-end holiday period?
I'm in my save as much money as I can phase, so no.
Oh man, that's too bad because
I'm not traveling for the next 10 years.
10 years?
No,
That's a long time to be staying in Singapore.
I know, right? I mean, I love traveling, but at this phase of at least at this phase, I'm not traveling so much. But yeah, what about you?
I'm looking to travel. I just haven't figured out
Where to
yet.
go? Why not go Africa?
Yeah, maybe as far as possible.
That's the first thing that came to my mind.
Really? Because
Yes.
it starts with A, I see.
Yeah, Avril
so-
in Africa. How catchy is that?
Yes,
We'll have a whole show
that
for
would
you.
work. Yeah, and File Live crosses back to 938 Live Studios. Later on in the program, on Culture Cafe, Daphne Lim speaks to Keith Yuen, blogger at Travel 360, and he lives to explore the world. His passion has actually led him back to Africa twice. We haven't even been there before, and this guy's gone there twice.
I've gone there in my dreams.
Wait, yeah, sure. That works as well. We find out more of his addiction and get some great ideas for your next trip to the great continent of Africa.
Please check that you've got your boarding pass to enter the Culture Cafe on Thursdays, 4:30 to 6 p.m. Angela Lim and myself, Daphne Lim, here to ask you if you'd like some coffee, tea, or valuable travel tips and insights. Boarding pass on 938 Live, Thursdays, 4:30 to 6 p.m.
We talk with you on 938 Live.
Welcome into your boarding pass in the Culture Cafe. You're with us, Angela, and myself, Daphne, and we're talking today about Africa with a travel blogger who has been there twice already. He basically lives to explore the world. He blogs at travelinspiration360.com. His name is Keith Yuen, and we have him here in the studio to share some ideas for your next trip to the great continent of Africa. Welcome into your boarding pass, Keith.
Hi everyone. Hi Daphne. Hi Angela.
Keith, tell us a little bit more about the blog at Travel Inspiration 360. How often do you even travel to be able to upkeep this blog?
Well, I have clocked like 66 countries by now. Actually, to be honest, I'm not really a blogger. I hate writing because it's involved a lot of like efforts. And to upkeep a blog it requires a lot of time.
Yeah.
So it's not as much as my passion for traveling and photography. So I started off with taking photos and then update through Facebook, and then it was well received by my friends and colleagues, and they have been encouraging me to start on a blog because they say photos are beautiful and then it's very inspirational. Some of the stories that I shared. So that kept me a while, and then I've been thinking about starting a blog because I want to have like my own portal, like
Right.
my own journal, so that I can share with my friends. But so eventually I have been procrastinating for many years, and eventually I started Travel Inspiration 360 last year.
Okay.
And initially I was thinking like, who will be interested about my stories,
and
I'm
then
not
938 Live started calling you.
yes, I mean, like I'm just an ordinary guy, and people are more interested about fashion, and then about food, and then I'm not like pretty girls, so I'm just thinking like, I don't think people will like my stories. But eventually I was very happy and was really blessed. There was a lot of kind readers. They dropped me a lot of encouragement through emails. So that keeps me going, and then Travel Inspiration just went viral after a couple of articles.
Well, was your intention to provide, the information that goes into how to best plan a trip, or is it just to share the beauty of the spaces that you've been in?
Yeah, it's more like sharing of places I've been. If you read about the articles that I've shared on Travel Inspiration 360, it's more on the places I've been to and the awesome people that I've met, and some of the stories and how I felt at the moment. It's not so much on reviews, what is the top 10 cheap place or hotel stay. Yeah, so it's kind of different, and I guess that is the reason why a lot of people think it's very refreshing. Yeah, that will keeps like, it's quite genuine and provide a kind of reviews for people.
If you only started it last year
Yeah.
and you've been clocking up your travels for these many years,
Yeah.
don't you think your memories are a little bit shady to recap all over again?
Yeah, actually, I do have my own separate journals.
Oh.
Yeah, but all these things that I've been written down as I travel for the past many years, I have been like just chucking it into my hard disk and put it into the shelf. And that's also the reason why I started Travel Inspiration 360.
Okay.
Because I felt felt that it's such a waste if I'm not going to share the stories, the awesome places I've been to. Yeah.
Well, share about Africa with us, Keith. You've been there twice. That's quite a lot for a very short time. So,
know, yeah.
what was the first experience like when you went to Africa?
Okay, when you talk about Africa, people is like, hey, why Africa? But my answer is like, why not? A lot of people have some misconception about Africa, like it's daunting, it's dangerous, it's impossible to travel by yourself, and it's expensive. If you really Google it right now, you will see like it's all over 10 grand. The packages are really like, sky high. And but when I went to, the first place was South Africa, because South Africa is easy for us. There's a straight flight from Singapore straight into Johannesburg. So that's the reason why I started off from South Africa. And then Kruger National Park, everyone has been, you watch National Geographic, when you know that it's 27 times of Singapore. It's the largest fenced-up safari in the world. And going to safari and just drive to do the game drive at night, and it's just like a dream for everyone. So that's the first thing that really comes to my mind when I think about Africa. So I went into South Africa and en route to Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe. I actually passed by Botswana, and that's another amazing place. I get to know Botswana is like one of the safest country in Africa. And I met beautiful people, and then I was in the salt pond, witnessed the moonrise and the sunset concurrently happen on the same horizon. Yeah. It was in one of my article on Botswana, and I had the pictures of the moonrise and the sunset, so it was really awesome.
We've got lots to go on there already. Let's start with South Africa and Kruger Park. Did it live up to your expectations? What were you expecting before you went to South Africa?
Okay, I was really scared, to be honest, because the safari is not like a natural habitat for human being. It's their land, so we are like the visitors. And when I was there, I was like expecting a lot. I was expecting to see a lot of animals, a lot of actions, but it unfortunately it didn't happen, because Kruger National Park is like thickly, it's a bush and it's a forest. There's a lot of places for animals to hide out, so it's not easy to spot animal as much as other places like Kenya and Tanzania. So unfortunately I didn't complete my big 5 hunting during my first trip to South Africa, and that's why I have to go again, which is the second time in Kenya and Tanzania.
How many did you cover the first trip?
The first trip, just 4.
Okay.
I should say 4.5. Okay, because I saw elephants, buffalo, rhino, and lion from a very far distance, and unfortunately I saw a leopard, but it was dead because it was killed by a passerby in a car, and in Botswana. So that was really awful. So I guess I didn't complete. That gave me a good reasons to go back to Africa again, the second time to Kenya and Tanzania.
Sounds wonderful. So when you go to a safari like that, you have to hire one of the authorized tour guides, I'm assuming?
Yeah. The first time I actually did by the overland tour from Johannesburg, and it takes me to Kruger National Park, and I went to Mokopane, Botswana, and Zimbabwe by myself, and flew all the way myself to Cape Town, and I came back. And the second time I actually hired my own chef and my own driver. And then basically I do everything by myself. I plan out my own route because I'm more familiar with Africa culture. And I managed to hire a chef and a driver, which is reliable person. And the total budget was just $4,000 Singapore dollars, inclusive of air flights.
Wow.
Yeah, that takes me all the way to Nairobi.
I was wondering if you can give us some tips, a little bit, Keith, about how to pick guides and chefs and whoever that's traveling with you, reliably, because I've had friends with very bad experiences with guides, where the guides have brought them into rural territory and refused to follow them where they wanted to go, and weapons were involved. So that's quite a horror story for a lot of travelers. How did you avoid that?
Okay. Probably because I didn't start it off with traveling in Africa. So before that, I actually explored Europe and North America and South America. So I met a lot of travelers, and I met a lot of Africans as well, like Kenyans, Tanzanians, and South Africans. So they gave me a lot of tips. And right now, because everyone just asks Google, just do a lot of, I did a lot of tarot reading, especially like TripAdvisors and online references and blog. They actually gave a lot of tips about, who is reliable. And online, there's a lot of packages that they offer like sky high prices. But who is the one that actually offers these, like really down to earth services are the local people. So it's through recommendation and referrals I actually managed to get this guy. And he actually managed to get someone who is also reliable to do some cooking for me, because I'm a vegetarian. So there's no way that I'm gonna. Yes.
Yeah, I understand your pain.
Yeah, I know.
It's
no more
terrible,
cucumber and
John.
tomatoes.
So it's actually quite difficult to just find vegetarian food along the way, all through Africa.
Yeah. How am I going to put it across? Because you're in the middle of safari, so a lot of people say, "Hey, you won't go to Hango because there's so many trees around." I mean, I'm just kidding. But most of the time, you in the middle of safari, there's nothing. There's no shops. So basically, the chef and the driver will have to take everything with you throughout. The numbers of days that you're going to do your game drive in the safari.
And normal tours won't be able to provide for you.
Oh,
or-
they do. But it depends on the different some
Okay.
of the more luxurious kind of packages, they will take you to the lodges. Yeah, and
Plus, on your second trip, you wanted to design the whole tour yourself.
by myself. Yeah.
Well, it's one thing to say that you're familiar with a place. It's another to go, okay, I'm going to plan my whole itinerary across this continent because I've been there once before.
Yeah.
That took a lot of confidence. I mean, how did you plan for something like that? And then tell your driver where you wanted to go and what you wanted to do.
Oh, well, actually, it's all pre-planned before I went over. So I actually read up a lot about Kenya and Tanzania. And because I was traveling in South Africa, I met so many travelers because I stay in the hostel. And that's when all the information are well exchanged with each other. And they share, you have to go to Ngorongoro and you have to go to Serengeti. And then we know that, we watch National Geographic and they say the Serengeti National Park. And then you just feel like, wow, this is the place I really want to go. And you get all this information, and I sort of like look at the map. So I'm pretty good with map because I love looking at map during free times. It's such a weird hobby, I know, but yeah, then you start to wonder like how long does it take from one place to another place, and then you start to think whether is it possible to plan out your own path, and that's when I draw itinerary, and then I send it to the driver and discuss with him over email.
Well, cost-wise, Keith, do you think there's a big difference between going, say, with a group where people might feel a bit more safe if they don't have your hobbies?
Definitely. But okay, but give you a scenario. When I was in Kenya and Tanzania, because I went with my brother the second time. The first time I was alone. The first time I was going with the packages, like the overland tour, that's like 12 people in a small safari vehicle. And the second time I have the whole safari vehicle by myself, like a 12-seater vehicle, and then just the two of us, and enjoying and taking photos, and whenever there's any actions, we will be just like, oh, there's a lion over there, oh, there's a cheetah, and then we will be just like moving around freely. And then you saw other game drive, some other cars in the vehicles, they are like packed with like 15 people in a 12-man
Trying to
vehicle.
sneak up to an elephant.
Yeah. And then you see like it's really packed. They are really packed in a small vehicle, and then they're trying to get a good shot of animals. Is really hard because there's so many people squeezing in a small vehicle.
Well, we are certainly going to want to come back and find out some more about Keith Yuen's travels all through Africa. Some great tips on itineraries, as well as how else we can save money, because he managed to do his whole trip practically solo, with a private chef as well, under 4K. Going to find out more in your boarding pass in the Culture Cafe in just a moment.
The news when it happens on 938 Live.
Back on your boarding pass in the Culture Cafe with Angela. I'm Daphne. We're speaking to Keith Yuen. He is a blogger at Travel Inspiration 360. Only started the blog 1 year ago, but this guy is addicted to travel. He's been to Africa twice already, and on the second try, he went with a personal chef and driver. Practically a luxurious one-man tour. So welcome back, Keith. Tell us a little bit more about the highlights from both of your trips. What should we not miss if we want to plan a similar safari-focused trip to Africa?
Okay, for both of my trips, I would think the safari is one of the main highlights because that's what Africa is all about. But not everything. Still remember I witnessed the wildebeest migration in August last year. Yeah.
And you've got to be there at the right time.
Yes, it's
Okay.
only in the certain month. Okay, because that in August when Serengeti is actually a drier place,
Yeah.
and that's when the wildebeest and the zebras, they will actually migrate into Kenya, into the Masai Mara. So that is when you can see the actions. So it's just like Jurassic Park, the movie, going to the safari, and then they start to play with all the kind animals.
Did you also have the song Born Free with you so you could play it as they
and Lion
ran?
King as well. Yeah, I have all these things, like soundtrack.
Stored up in your MP3.
Yeah.
I have a friend who recently just went on the safari as well, and she kept pointing out animals and went Pumbaa.
Yes, Hakuna
Simba.
Matata.
Yeah, and the guide was just looking at her. You're from where? Singapore? They don't have animals.
Yes. Yeah, it's not like, night safari, or we have the best zoo in the world.
Yeah.
But when you're there, everything is so different. You're just astonished by this vastness. And when I was there, I still remember, it's just like the movie, and you started off with the kind animals and start to chill and relax. Oh, the zebras, the impala, the Thompson gazelle, and suddenly the atmosphere just changed, and it start to bring the drama in. And then when the predators like the lion, the cheetahs, and the hyenas is waiting to prowl and waiting for the chance to attack, and that's when all the animals start scrambling around and run away for their life.
You actually witnessed a hunt.
Yeah, I saw the cheetahs and the lion.
Wow, that's really rare.
And the vultures are waiting to get a scrap of the meat. So that was really it's gross. Being a vegetarian to witness this, I was
Yeah,
like, it's a dilemma. Like, what should I watch it or should I not pray for it? But it's a fact of life.
Yeah.
When you're in Africa, you're in their turf basically. They're not like our habitat. We don't belong there. So, I mean, I should call myself fortunate and blessed to be able to witness that.
It probably reinforced your vegetarian tendencies as well. But tell us a bit more, Keith. If people don't really want to spend, say, 9 days like you did in a safari,
Yeah.
What are the other places they can go to just enjoy a change of scenery?
Wow, Africa is really huge. Like starting from the north, you have Egypt. Some people call it Middle East, and then the pyramids. And then you have, like in Morocco, you have the Sahara Desert. That's when you can actually ride on a camel. And then you have the beautiful, the central area where you can see the gorillas. You can do the trekking, in the forest, and as well as the Mount Kilimanjaro, which is the highest mountain. It's absolutely beautiful and gorgeous, and even scuba diving as well. I'm thinking of
Mozambique.
Mozambique, yeah.
I've been researching that for a while.
Yeah, and I also really want to do Lake Malawi because a lot of people say that it's comparable to Galapagos in Ecuador.
Really?
Yeah, I just came back from Galapagos. It was amazing. It was really jaw-dropping. Yeah, you can see the sharks and the turtles. Yeah, and you swim with a sea lion. So I'm really having a lot
so
of
jealous.
Next trip.
Making me
Next
feel
trip, yeah.
terrible. I mean, it's a huge continent. We can't possibly cover all the countries. You've covered Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa. Where else have you been? Botswana.
Zimbabwe.
Okay, I mean, these are generally some of the more popular tourist countries within Africa. If someone was to go there and they are a bit fearful of their safety, they're a bit worried about not being able to communicate and find their way around, which of these countries that you've been to would you recommend they first initiate themselves with this continent?
Oh, well, I would say Botswana and Tanzania are pretty much very safe. I'm really surprised because I think Botswana and Tanzania is like, the typical African country, especially they are landlocked for Botswana. And eventually, it was a pleasant surprise because on my way to Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe, the situation was very peaceful. The people are really nice, and I still remember I was in the salt pond in the middle of the Nata, the national park in Botswana, and the people are like so chill. They just take out their wine and start dancing in the middle of like nowhere, and then you just see the horizon, with the moonrise and the sunset. And
Do you have to go there at a certain time to be able to see that?
yeah, it was near the evening time, and I don't know why. I can't remember. Like, I would just hop on with someone. Someone was just saying, "Oh, we're going to somewhere." I'm like, "Okay, can you take me as well?" And then they say, "Okay, come on. Where are you from?" And I was like, "Singapore." "Oh, friend, come." And then they just took me somewhere in the middle of nowhere. That's how the people there, react. They're just very carefree. It's not like the South African. They are all busy or like trying to get some money from you by asking you to buy something.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not that sort. It's really relaxed.
Any thoughts, Keith, on the culture culture? Because I'm sure even within the different countries, they have a very rich, diverse sort of culture. Anything that struck you among these places you've been to?
Definitely the Masamara tribe. That was a humbling visit to the Masamara tribe when I was in Kenya. So the Maasai people, they are the ancient Eastern African civilization, like the villages. So I visited one of the tribe, and the people are very welcoming. They teach me how to like set up a fire, using a fire for free, and then they taught me how to build house using cow dungs. So I was like, oh, that smell awful. Like, why is the middle of nowhere there's a big pile of cow dung? And the chief was telling me that, oh, actually we use this to build the house because it will keep us like cool and warm during winter, and then it's waterproof. And I was like, wow, I learned something. But okay, but the smell. So I didn't want to be rude, but but it was kind of awkward. I had pictures in Travel Inspiration.
Did you live in one of these houses?
I went in. No, I didn't live. I can't because
What are their toilets made of? Do they have toilets?
no, they don't.
Okay.
They just have like a dedicated area. For the women's, they would just leave and then they would just do the business like elsewhere. And then for the men, it's open.
I mean, are the villages, the Maasai villages, actually open to public to stay with them?
Not all the tribes. Yeah, it's only certain tribes, and the tribes that I went is not too far from my campsite.
Right.
And I just asked around, is there any Maasai tribe that I can visit? And the people just tell me, point to me a direction, and I'm just walking through the path, and I felt dangerous because it's like in the middle of nowhere. And eventually I reached the tribe, and the chief just tell me that, oh, maybe you can contribute a pool of money for us.
Right.
And then they did a little tour, but it was to see their daily life. So that was really humbling. But in exchange, I taught them how to use like my smartphone, like how to use touchscreen to take selfies.
It's not like you gave it to them.
No. But I gave them some watches.
Right.
I pre-prepared some stuff and toys to give it to the people over there.
Is that general practice if you're going to visit tribes, especially if you want to kind of like stay with them? You should bring some presents.
Yeah,
with you?
I think it's better to bring some gift from Singapore, and because I read up a lot from the reviews, the online reviews, and a lot of people are suggesting that you should bring something over.
Yeah.
Especially the kids will benefit a lot, from some of the medicines or some of the toy. Yeah.
That's a great idea. So, are you returning to Africa anytime soon? And what's next?
Yeah, I really want to go, because Africa is my favorite continent. They are so diverse. It's not like Europe, like almost the same. Like you don't see cathedrals, but in Africa, it's just so amazing. The cultures, the scenery, and feeling natural in the safari. So I'm actually going back to Africa. If you consider Egypt is Africa as well.
Not really.
Not really. Middle East. Okay. Yeah, I'm actually going to Egypt next month.
Okay.
But I definitely will plan on a trip to Malawi because I heard so much about Malawi.
Well, make sure you come back here on your boarding pass when you return and share with us all your adventures, Keith.
Yes, I will. Thank you so much.
Keith Yuen, he's a blogger at Travel Inspiration 360. You can also find him on Instagram. What's your Instagram account?
It's Travel Inspiration 360 as well.
All right, cool. So look for that. Look up for that as well as on his blog, travelinspiration360.com. And if you can't quite get to Africa just yet, there's a country, or rather a city, just a few hours flight away that's also good to explore.